So this talk's going to be a little bit different from the previous talks. My name is Craig Robinson, and I am Chief Revenue Officer at FlowPlay. We make a number of MMOs. The most well-known is called Vegas World. It's a virtual social casino. And as Chief Revenue Officer, my role is to think a lot about how to make money in games and how to optimize revenue from games. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about what I think is important to think about before you think about revenue generation and revenue optimization, and that's the craft of game creation. And specifically, I'm going to talk about using Haxe, and I'll get into exactly what Haxe is, to create games. So before I go any further, is anybody here familiar with Haxe? Okay, we got a couple of people. All right, so this is going to be a pretty high-level talk. It's not super technical. It's going to give you an idea of what you can do with Haxe and why you might want to use it to build your next game. But before we talk about that, I want to talk about cycling. So this is a picture from this weekend of my friend Ben and I riding up Hurricane Ridge, which is over on the Olympic Peninsula, a couple hours from here. We had great weather. It was a beautiful day. And so I'm a cyclist, but I'm what's known in the cycling community as a mammal. A mammal stands for middle-aged men in Lycra. And we're a good-looking bunch, huh? I'm not in this shot, but these are my friends. So if you're not familiar with this species of human, you'll often see us in a Starbucks on maybe a Sunday afternoon walking around like this in cycling shoes and in clothing that's too tight. I have a point, I promise. This is my bike, and I love this bike. I just got it a couple of weeks ago. It's made by the Rodriguez or the R&E Cycle Company here in Seattle. And it's hand-built, custom-made. They measured me. They talked to me about what kind of cycling I do. They put on all the components that I wanted. It's just right. They even customized the head tube for me. They put this little bandito guy on the front. And R&E Cycles has been making hand-built bicycles in Seattle since 1973. And when I think about, building bicycles and building games, there's something for me that comes to mind, and that's the idea of craftsmanship. Building games is an engineering discipline, but it's still much more of a craft than it is a science. And so is building hand-built bicycles. These guys really put a lot of care and thought into every bike that they build. Their shop is in the basement of their office, or of their store. This is a lathe. That's Dan Towle. He's the owner. I got to go on a tour of the bike shop when I bought the bike. This is a bike being made in a jig. The bikes are made from steel. Most bikes today are made from carbon fiber. They're highly engineered. Steel has some properties that many people find beneficial over carbon fiber, specifically in terms of ride quality. And traditionally, steel bikes are heavier than carbon fiber, but these guys have found a way to make super lightweight steel bikes. This is a tool that they have in the shop. It's a spoke cutter. It's made by a company called Phil Wood. They're also a local bike, or they're not local, they're an American, they're in San Jose, but American bike component manufacturer. This is a 40-year-old tool. It's got, you probably can't see it here, but it's got serial number 8 on it. They use this tool because it works and because they have decided that this is the best tool to do the job. So this bike is made by the Specialized company. I'm going to talk about games here in a minute, I promise. This is a really nice bike. It's highly engineered. It's made of carbon fiber. This is what the pros ride. And any cyclist would love to have this bike, but there's some things I want to point out about it. Because it's highly engineered to be aerodynamic, it's got some elements that are not as customizable. It's got a proprietary head tube. It's got a proprietary stem. That's because it's more aerodynamic, but they needed to make it proprietary. This model doesn't have it, but some of them have proprietary brakes that are built into the fork. It's got a proprietary seat tube because it's also for aerodynamics. So I can't go out and buy any seat tube and upgrade this bike. I need to buy it from Specialized. Specialized is a big company. This is where they design their bikes. They're actually manufactured by a completely different company in Asia. Maybe I think they have 3 different companies they work with to manufacture their bikes. This is R&E Cycles just up the street here in Seattle, where they've been for 40 years. This is their storefront, tiny little shop. Okay, that's 5 minutes on bikes. Let's talk about software. So, what is Haxe? The description's right here. I'll read it for you. Haxe is an open source toolkit based on a modern, high-level, strictly typed programming language, a cross-compiler, a complete cross-platform standard library, and ways to access each platform's native capabilities. So it's tools for software creation. It's traditionally been used for game creation, but it's by no means limited to game creation. There are lots of applications that are built with Haxe as well. The title of this talk is The Little-Known Secret to Cross-Platform Game Development. I'll talk about why it's cross-platform, or cross-platform scalable game development. I'll talk about why it's cross-platform, why it's little known. I'm not quite sure, except that it has been around a long time. It was first released in 2006, but they don't do any advertising. R&E Cycles, by the way, they don't do any advertising either. It's just based on word of mouth and people loving their bikes. But the people that have built Haxe are really software craftspeople. Nicola, the creator of Haxe, is a game developer. He uses it for his games now. He created it to make games. So Haxe was created and is shepherded by a small community of really passionate people that care about software development. And this is a picture down here of the Haxe Summit that we held last week in Seattle in our offices. Hugh Sanderson, the guy who's speaking in this picture and is pictured up here, maintains the C++ target, and he's been working on it over 10 years. And these people are very accessible. I've met most of them. And it's not just them. There are other people in the community that have contributed, but this is the core team that kind of moves the language forward. It's gone through 3 different versions. Version 4 of the language is about to be released with a lot of nice features that, if we have time, I can talk about. So, I'm going to talk about the top 10 reasons why you might want to use Haxe to build your next game. Number 10, it's open source. All of the source code for Haxe, its standard library, all of the tools are available on GitHub. The compiler itself is licensed under GPL2, but the standard library is licensed under MIT, so it can be used in commercial projects. And as I said, the compiler team and other people in the community are very accessible. It's easy to interact with them if you have any questions or problems. One of the things I love about open source is the ability to fix problems if you encounter them on your own, and then contribute those fixes back to the community, or even extensions and things like that. We had a bug in it was a fairly obscure bug in IPv6 implementation in Haxe, and we were able to make a fix, patch that locally, put in a pull request, and they had it patched within a day or two, and onto the main branch. Number 9. Cross-platform. So I mentioned this before, but what do I mean by this? Haxe works in a bit different way than other types of compilers. What Haxe does is translate the Haxe language, and I'll talk about kind of some elements of the Haxe language in a minute, but it takes the Haxe language and it translates it to other high-level languages or bytecodes for VM for execution on VMs. And you can see it supports a large number of targets that it can output code for. So the way you build software in Haxe is you write it in the Haxe language, and then if you're going to go to web, you just output to JavaScript. But if you're going to go to mobile, you output to C++, then compile that C++ with your native development tools. So all the code that's running on mobile that is generated with Haxe is native code. There's no player required or VM required. It's actual native code. And you can even go in and read the code and debug the code if you want to. What that means is that from a single code base, you can hit web, you can hit mobile, you can hit consoles, you can hit platforms that we haven't even heard of yet, because it just is a matter of creating a back end for translation of the language to that platform. Number 8, it's easy to learn. So the Haxe syntax is very similar to ActionScript. Anybody who knows ActionScript can pick up Haxe in a matter of days. Even if you don't know ActionScript, it's a very straightforward and accessible language to learn. You don't need any IDEs to build with Haxe. We do use some editing tools like IntelliJ or Visual Studio Code, but technically all you need is a text editor, and you can execute the Haxe code in a browser. So it's very easy to start using. Number 7, it's proven. It's been used by a large number of companies, probably more than you would have guessed if you haven't heard of it before. But many people don't know this, but the TiVo UI is built in Haxe and OpenFL, which is a library that runs on top of Haxe that I'll talk about later. A number of large game companies have built games with Haxe, and a number of smaller companies are also using Haxe, and then some in-between companies like FlowPlay, for instance. One of the earlier successes in Haxe is a game called Papers, Please. And it's won a huge number of awards. I think it was released in 2013. I'm going to show a video of it now. It's sort of a dystopian document-based puzzler. We have audio on that? So this is a 2D game, as you can see. Nice and limited. I'm going to cut this short because I have a couple other videos to show and we don't have that much time. This next game is called Defender's Quest. Dead Cells. I'm going to show Defender's Quest in a minute. This is a more recent release. This is sort of a roguelike Metroidvania. So those are just two examples. There are literally thousands of games that have been built in Haxe, some very highly critically acclaimed games. Number 6, OpenFL. OpenFL is a library that sits on top of Haxe that emulates the Flash API. It's what we used at FlowPlay to port our ActionScript game that was written originally for Flash, over 1.4 million lines of code from ActionScript to Haxe. And there's a great talk by our CTO, Doug Pearson, about that process if you're interested in what we did to affect that port. And you can find it online. But OpenFL makes taking a game that was written for Flash and bringing it to Haxe very easy because all the same APIs are supported. But they're not just supported in Flash. I mean, you can use Haxe to output to Flash, but we can also output to HTML5 and to native mobile and to other platforms using the same APIs that we formerly just used with the Flash player. This is a demo of Vegas World. Vegas World is a casino game with a number of smaller games within it. So we've got slot machines and blackjack and poker, and also avatars that can have parties and give gifts and interact with each other. Ran for many years in ActionScript under Flash, and then we ported it very successfully to Haxe and didn't miss a beat in terms of revenue and user acquisition. Number 5, Haxe Flixel is a game engine that's built on top of Haxe and OpenFL that's used for creation of 2D games. So it does a lot of things that you would expect from a game engine, like define things like sprites and loaders and things like that. Defender's Quest is a critically acclaimed game that was built using Haxe Flixel.
Deluxe, critically acclaimed, genre-bending tower defense RPG hybrid. Staple your butt to the edge of your seat because things are about to get off the proverbial chain. Gameplay sublime. Imagine the maze-munching madness of tactical tower defense gameplay, where each tower is a persistent, fully-fledged
RPG kind of an RPG tower defense
with experience to
game.
gain, skills to level up, weapons and items to equip, and customization to be customized. As you forge your way through the crumbling scraps of civilization in search of the ultimate prize, freedom. Story transcendent.
This game was recently ported to the Switch using OpenFL.
Geological wonder turned medieval plague colony, where the arrival of a necromancer has escalated the threat level from crap to flaming crap on a crap sandwich with a crappuccino cherry on top. Steel yourself against the horror as the naked plague corpses that once littered the streets rise up and seek your blood for the nefarious purposes of their mysterious master. Size? Titanic. Click furiously as you deploy your defenders against the
It's a very funny video. You can watch it later online if you want. We're running a little bit out of time here. So number 4, Ka. So Ka is a, as it says, ultra-portable, high-performance, open-source multimedia framework. It's built on top of Haxe. I would define it as a library for building hardware-accelerated 2D and 3D games. And it is the underlying framework on which Armory is built. Armory is an open-source 3D game engine that is integrated with Blender. So you can use Blender to model your scenes and set up animations and game scenes. I'm going to show a video of some demos that were created with Armory. So as you can see, Haxe isn't limited to just 2D games. You can do full 3D. Here's a full 3D first-person shooter. Okay, thanks. I have no idea why he's shooting boxes, but so that's Armory. Number 2, Heaps. Heaps is also a kind of a game graphics engine built on top of Haxe. It was created by Nicola, who is the creator of Haxe. Probably the best way to show off the features of it is just to show the game that Nicola's company, Northgard, created using Heaps. I haven't played this game yet, but I'm super excited to play it. It looks really cool. So that's Northgard built on Heaps and Haxe. And then I want to bring us back around for the final reason why you might want to consider using Haxe to build your game. And that's this idea of craftsmanship. And I'm going to try and read this poem to you in my best dramatic voice, but I really thought it kind of embodied the idea of craftsmanship. It's called The Craftsman by Marcus Christian. I ply with all the cunning of my art this little thing, and with consummate care I fashion it, so that when I depart, those who come after me shall find it fair and beautiful. It must be free of flaws, pointing no laborings of weary hands, and there must be no flouting of the laws of beauty, as the artist understands. Through passion, yearnings infinite yet dumb, I lift you from the depths of my own mind and gild you with my soul's white heat to plumb the souls of future men. I leave behind this thing that in return this solace gives. He who creates true beauty ever lives. And I really think that sometimes that idea of craftsmanship gets lost when we talk so much about making money from our games. But the best games start with that idea in mind, and the idea that you care about what you're creating, and that you want to create something that has beauty and makes the world a better place. And so, this Specialized S-Works, if somebody gave me this bike, I'm not saying I would turn it down, but I know what bike I want to spend my time riding. Thanks a lot, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Do we have any questions? Not overwhelming. Oh, thumbs up. Okay, fair enough. I guess just one question. I will, because our next speaker's not here. So, why? I missed a bit in the middle, so apologies if you dealt with this. But why kind of? Obviously, there's tools like Unity and Epic and plenty of tools. But why Haxe? What's the biggest advantage? Because all those other platforms are trying to be create once, publish everywhere. So what's the biggest advantage for using a tool like Haxe?
Well, it's the 10 reasons I
know, but over Unity.
Overall?
Yeah, over Unity specifically, I guess. I'm not trying to create a fight with Unity here, but that's the popular indie developer of choice.
Sure, and I think Unity is a fine platform for game creation as well. I think it depends. You need to look at what your situation is as a studio, what kind of tools you're familiar with. Any game, especially cross-platform game development technology, you're going to inherit some set of problems, and you need to decide what types of problems you want to deal with.
Yeah,
I think I talked a little bit, mostly through analogy, about things like proprietary systems and vendor lock-in and things like that. So I think one of the biggest advantages of Haxe is that it is open source, and that there are people who are contributing to it, and you can contribute to it if you want. There are all the libraries for it are open source, and so there's this open community of people who want to make this a better tool for game development.
Cool. Sorry, I wanted to ask you a question. That's all, but I thought it was really good. It's very rare we have a poem read or
the first time ever.
Bikes. No, that's thank you very much. Go final round of. Oh, there's a question. Sorry.
Oh, Haxe 4? I haven't have a slide on that. This isn't. That wasn't
a stage question. Very good.
This was not staged. So these are some of the features in Haxe 4, and we were just introduced to this at the Haxe conference, at the Haxe Summit in Seattle last Friday. Some of this is pretty technical, so I won't go through each and every one of these. But if you're interested, I'll be happy to go through it with you offline after the talk.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, another question.
35 people. Yeah. It was a relatively small showing in Seattle. Most of the Haxe folks are in Europe. We have a few hardcore people here, but a much bigger community in Europe right now. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Cool. Thank you very much.